So we've gone over the differences between a twin flame union and a divine union, but what are the differences between a divine union and a karmic relationship? I have so many examples to give you of karmic relationships because I have had my share. If you are an ex of mine, you may want to swipe away, or one of their stalkers. Okay, so a karmic relationship, by definition, is a relationship that comes into your life to trigger growth and healing. So it's very similar to a twin flame in this regard. At first, it feels really intense and magnetic, but they usually involve repeating old patterns and cycles that eventually the pain is going to become so much that you're going to want to heal. You're just going to get to the point where you cannot deal with it anymore and you have got to face your old patterns, wounds, and triggers. Divine union is a conscious, aligned partnership where two people have done all that healing work, they face their triggers and traumas, and they're ready to come together in a union that feels safe, that feels aligned, that feels purposeful. So let's get into 5 major differences between a karmic relationship and a divine union. Number 1 is lesson versus alignment. So a karmic relationship is there to teach you a lesson. They come in your life to show you patterns that you need to break. My last relationship that I talked all about right before I met my divine counterpart was a karmic relationship. He had all of the trappings of my pattern, down to the tattoos on his arms. More than that, though, he had emotional wounding that showed up and patterned that of my original caregiver. So I know that's really deep, but basically he was every wound and every trigger I've ever had from childhood, from not being chosen, from trauma, wrapped up into a person. He employed all of the techniques that my original caregivers employed and my bad relationships employed. He was all of it wrapped up with a big shiny bow. And he made me face them because he wasn't going to change. He wasn't going to improve. He was just who he was. That karmic wrapped up in a bow. And I had to get real clear. Am I willing to do this again? Am I even happy in this relationship? Why the hell do I keep on attracting this archetype of man? I finally, in just exasperation and just desperation, said, I'm done. I have got to heal. And I went inward and I healed. And then I met my divine counterpart. That's why I always say you can thank the narcissist because they are your baddie initiation. And in this case, they are your initiation to divine union, which on the converse, it's not about lessons, it's about alignment. You're finally healed, so you are more in your state of authentic being. You are more who you essentially are before the world told you who to be, before traumas and triggers kind of wrecked you and separated you from who you essentially are. You've now healed, and a divine union lets you be that authentic person. And it also incites growth because now you can be more in touch with your life's purpose because you've healed your way through all the traumas and triggers. But I'll get to that later. Number 2 is emotional highs and lows versus stability. And again, we're comparing karmics and divine union here. So a karmic has a whole boatload of highs and lows, ups and downs, not feeling chosen, breaking up, getting back together. We talked about this with twin flames. Often twin flames have this inconsistency. If you're on the am I anxious or am I avoidant side of TikTok, which I'm not judging you, I was there for a very long time too, you're probably in a karmic relationship. Because a divine union has none of that. A divine union is stable, it is safe. You are safe to be who you essentially are, and it gives you the wings to fly because it feels so safe. You don't have any time for any of that nonsense because you've grown so much that you're able to consistently communicate your needs to your partner and vice versa. And so really like moments of tension are just moments where you alchemize and get stronger. But I'll get to that in a minute too. Number 3 is repeating cycles versus forward movement. So like I said, a karmic relationship is oftentimes you repeating old cycles, you getting with your type, you having chemistry. Okay, all of that is like you just repeating what feels exciting to you. And like we talked about early on, a karmic relationship almost always feels like magnetically exciting, like irresistible. That is a sign right there that you're repeating an old pattern. Divine union moves forward. Like I said in the last one, when you have problems, you alchemize them, which if you don't know what that means, I'll get into it briefly. Basically, you're turning hardship and struggle and insecurity into strength, happiness, and safety. You're doing that together in the relationship. You're alchemizing hard things and traumas and triggers into actually strengths and points where you now grow and you get better. It's always moving forward. It's getting through hard things together and then coming out on top. My husband and I joke that like we just keep on winning. And that's not because we have ego. It's because that's truly what a divine union is. You just keep on leveling up, baby. Not only personally, but as a couple. And you'll see it in your 3D. You're going to get the job you want. You're going to move to the house that you love. You're going to have abundance. The business that you create is going to pop off. All this happens because your relationship is so strong and it's divine. So you alchemize hardship and you get better. Number 4 is attachment versus conscious choice. So a karmic relationship is a lot about attachment. You are attached to them because, like in my situation with my relationship right before my husband, I was so attached to him because he was a narcissist and he was manipulative. So he was doing like intermittent reinforcement and things like that to get me hooked onto him. But I was allowing myself to get hooked. I was allowing myself to get attached because I hadn't gone inward and actually built the stability and the self-awareness and the security within my own self to stand for better, to demand better, to be able to give it to myself first before I look to another to give it to me. So I was, of course, attached to him because he was the definition of whether or not I was lovable, the definition of whether or not I was going to be chosen. It was all the childhood wounds of wanting and wishing and waiting for somebody else to make me whole, when in reality, I had everything within me to do that. And that's what divine union is. Divine union is a relationship where you've done that work, you stand in the security of who you are, the dignity, the power, and the strength, and so does your partner. And together you make a conscious choice to stay together, to be together, to love one another. You choose from a place of wholeness and not a fear of losing each other. And the last difference between a karmic and a divine union is awakening versus partnership. Karmic relationships often wake you up to what needs healing inside of you. I was just going along my merry way, repeating the same pattern, choosing the same partners over and over until my last karmic relationship with somebody who was diabolical and made me face finally and recognize this pattern that I had and that I was not standing on business. I was choosing somebody who reflected my inner love, and there was not a lot of it. Clearly, by the way this person was treating me. And so it made me face myself and realize I needed to love myself. I needed to explore those wounds and heal those wounds, heal that inner child so that I could start choosing people and relationships that reflected the love I had for myself and the dignity and respect I had for myself. And it took healing to do that. It took an awakening. And after I woke up to that, to my self-worth, to my value, I met my divine counterpart. A karmic is often the catalyst that wakes you up to that. So karmic relationships are not failures. I always say, I thank my ex. I thank him for his diabolical nature and behavior because it woke me up to my worth and value and to these wounds that had kept me small for so long and kept me playing small. And once I recognized that I had a pattern of relationships, I also saw I had a pattern in friendships. I had a pattern in tolerating disrespect in the work environment. I was allowing people to step all over me in every area of my life. And so I thank that karmic because he woke me up to the fact that I wasn't going to do that anymore, that I deserve better. When I recognized that, I started calling in everything I could ever want and the divine union of my dreams and the relationships and friendships that my heart has always needed and yearned for and deserved, quite frankly. Karmic relationships are often the catalyst for the healing that is required to be in divine union. And divine union is built on the healing that comes from those lessons.